Now, I've had a number of requests asking if I could show how to replace a water pump on a Subaru. Now, before we begin, I just want to quickly show you this. The fasteners that hold the water pump to the block are really delicate. They're M6, in other words, that's the diameter, M6 by 1. I believe the length is 40 millimeters. I'll double check and put it in the place it in the description box, but they're very delicate, well known to snap. Now, they're torqued to 9 foot-pounds, and I do have a torque wrench. But the lowest setting is 10 foot-pounds. And on 10 foot-pounds, this is a 1/2-inch drive torque wrench. On 10 foot-pounds, it snapped it. And really, it was a poor choice. What I should have used, and this is what I purchased once that did snap, that fastener, is a 3/8 drive, so smaller drive, but it's a torque wrench based on inch-pounds. So 108 inch-pounds is equivalent to 9 foot-pounds, and this is what I did to complete the job. Okay, so purchase one of these. It's well worth the investment. All the parts and everything that I'll use here, I'll have links to Amazon in the description box below. Also, the other thing is, as you'll see right now, it's a decent sized job. It's not hard, but there's a lot of steps, and you have to remove the timing belt. If you're doing this job, you might as well replace the timing belt and the bearing since you're there. Now, I did this repair around 2 years ago, and the timing belt and water pump. So what I'm going to do is I'll remove and splice out just the water pump from that video that we did, have it just in this video. But if you want to see the entire process for the timing belt, the bearings, I'll have a link in the description box below, and you'll see the whole process from start to finish. So that being said, let's begin. Now, as you can see, this front cover is coming off already. That's because the bottom end of this bumper is so beat up. But take a look toward the back just to show you how these are removed. So right up here, just place in a flathead. Just pry it out. Now, if you break these, you can always purchase extra ones off eBay or Amazon. A little stubborn. There we go. Okay, there you go. Now, once you remove those two covers, here's your exhaust, and then right in front, sandwiched in between the radiator and the exhaust, is a heat shield if you have an automatic transmission vehicle. Just so I have a little bit more working room and you have a better picture on what's going on, I'm going to remove this as well. I'll spray some PB Blaster, and we'll get this right out of the way. Now, on the right-hand side of the radiator, that's the passenger side, you have a Phillips size screw. Just remove this screw, and this will drain the fluid, okay? So now we're going to remove the overflow bottle, clean up the top so we can remove the fans. Right where my index finger is, there's a little clip. Just press in the clip, and this comes right out. So the fluid has finished draining, and I also removed the lower radiator hose. So what you want to do, here's your transmission cooler lines. You just want to unhook them, unclip them from the electric fan assembly, and also you have a harness connector here. Now, regarding these, you don't press down, you press up, and then, let's see if I can do this one hand here. So again, you press up, and these two come apart, okay? So again, also on the other side, right here, you press up, and there you go. Now, these fans are held in by 4 10mm bolts on top of the radiator. And I'm going to remove the upper radiator hose. Since you're doing this job, it's a good idea also to replace these hoses. So now we're removing the drive belts, and I have a separate video that goes into Great detail in the steps involved. If you need to see that, I'll include a link in the description box below. So you just remove the dry belts here. Okay. Now this being a late model Subaru, the AC belt is a stretch type of belt. In other words, you can't set the tension. You need a special tool to reinstall these, and to get them off you have no choice, you have to cut them off. So on your older Subarus, you don't have to do this. You can actually adjust it. But on the newer ones, you have to cut them to remove them, and then you need a special tool to reinstall them. Again, just check out that other video. I go in the steps involved to replace the belts. Now when it comes time to removing the crankshaft pulley, there is a special tool that you can purchase. It's around $70, and it essentially keeps this from rotating, the pulley from rotating as you remove the nut. It's a 22mm nut. Another option is if you have an impact gun, you can try that. If you don't have any of those, the other option is you grab a breaker bar. Let me grab my extension here. Okay, you grab a breaker bar, and you grab an extension. Okay, place it on the bolt, and what you do is you can place it against the ground, you can place it against the frame rail, and what you do is you quickly, just very, very temporarily, half a second, turn the ignition key, like you're starting the car. You don't want to start the car, obviously, but just crank it for a split second, and it will loosen up that bolt. Now, obviously, you have to be incredibly careful if you are going to do this. Okay, so I have it right to the ground, and here we go. And now the bolt is nice and loose. Okay. Okay. Now the timing belt cover, I know the lighting here isn't too good, but essentially it's two components. You have a left hand, or the driver's side. It's a small piece of plastic, comes off, and then you have the larger side on the passenger side. So these are just 10mm bolts that we need to remove. This is also the same cover you would remove if you just wanted to inspect the timing belt, which we also did in a previous video, just to see the condition and so forth. Okay. Now before we can remove this cover, I just had to disconnect the oxygen sensor connections because the wiring is in the way, and there you go. Now just in case if you can't find the bolts to remove the cover, because the bottom ones obviously are a little hard to see, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Now before you remove the belt, you want to line up the cams. So you have your right hand side cam there and the left hand side cam. So your driver's side, your passenger side, and this is your oil pump. So right here there's a mark, which is also right here, and that once you want to line that up right there. Okay, left hand cam, which is the driver's side, this guy here lines up with that. Don't worry about the arrow. This indicates top dead center. Okay, that's all that means. So never mind that. This marks up with that. Then over to the passenger side, which is the right-hand side. Whoops. Okay, that mark has to line up with right. Whoops. I'll do this again. It's a little tight in here. Right here. Okay. So that guy lines up with that. So now we can go ahead and remove the belt. We'll start with this tensioner here, and then that guy, and then slide the belt off. Now these are rather tight. If you need an extension, what I'm doing is just placing a socket. I'm placing this socket over the end, okay, over the end of the ratchet. This will give me more leverage. And there you go. Big help. Use the extensions. Makes a very, very big difference. Okay. Now we're also going to replace the hydraulic tensioner. These are pretty pricey through Subaru, around $100 just for this part. And there's also a rubber hose you need to remove on the bottom. I'll show you what it looks like once we remove the water pump because it's a little tight, the spacing here. Okay. There's a housing here that bolts onto the water pump. You need to remove the housing. So again, 2 bolts, 10 millimeter. Okay, place that to the side. So here we have the old water pump and the brand new water pump. Our new thermostat already has a gasket, new gasket installed. So just place it in the water pump and then press it down. You want to seat the thermostat in the water pump. Make sure it's a nice solid fitting. Grab your housing and let me just look up the torque specs. So these bolts are tightened to roughly 9 foot-pounds. And also on the side of the water pump is where you place the brand new gasket. This comes in the kit as well. So just make sure that the gasket is fully seated in the water pump. Now when you install the gasket, you can use a little bit of sealant just to keep the gasket in place. I'm also going to check the engine block, make sure the surface is really clean, and then we can go ahead and reinstall it. Now when you reinstall the water pump, you want to be incredibly careful when you torque down these screws. If you over torque them, they will snap. If that happens to you, the size of these bolts are M6 by 1. The length is roughly 40 millimeters. So you can get something like 45 millimeters and cut it off. It's a little hard to find unless you get a factory Subaru part. But don't over torque them. In this case, we need to go around twice, 9 foot-pounds each time. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 9 foot-pounds, and then you do it again, 9 foot-pounds. Okay? Again, don't over torque it because they are notorious for snapping. And also don't forget to reinstall the heater bypass hose. Now the tensioners are all torqued down to 30 foot-pounds. And here's our new hydraulic tensioner, again 30 foot-pounds. Now here's the fun part, reinstalling the timing belt. Now you want to make sure that you install this the correct way. In this case, it's Subaru facing me. In other words, it's not upside down. So it's facing me in the correct lettering. The dotted line is for the oil pump. And then you have a line over here that's going to mark up with this guy. And then you have a line right there that lines up with this guy. Okay? So let me show you the way. There's a lot of different ways you can do this, but let me first line everything up. So again, oil pump is lined up. This is the right hand side, or the passenger side. It's lined up. And let me just show you the left hand, or the driver's side. Everything is lined up. Now with the tooth idler, you're going to press down. It's a tight fit. Press down and screw in the bolt. And then we have the smooth idler. Goes right here. And same with this one, 30 foot-pounds. And then lastly, you just pull the pin and that will set the tension on the belt. Now as a safety check, I'm going to turn this belt 1 full turn and make sure all of the alignment marks line up. If something's off, this is when you want to find out rather than when the car is running. Oil pump, left, right, we're in good shape. We'll put back on the timing covers and wrap up the installation. Now the crankshaft can only go on in one position, so that makes things easy. And the manual also recommends to coat the threads with engine oil. Now the fun part comes when you need to tighten down this bolt to 130 foot-pounds. The first go around is 35 foot-pounds, and then the second go around is 130 foot-pounds. There's a special tool that you can purchase for around $60. You attach it to the pulley. It prevents the pulley from rotating as you tighten up the nut. I don't have that tool. Another option you can use, you need really, really strong bolts because they will most likely bend at the very least. Okay? Get something at least grade 10. These are 8mm in diameter. And inside the crank pulley, you have 4 holes. They're located at the 12, 3, 6, and 9 o'clock position. And what you need to do, grab yourself a very, in this case I have a long screwdriver, and of course our torque wrench. Now let me set this here. Okay, so with my left hand I'm going to pull up. So pull up toward me. With my right hand I'm pushing down on the torque wrench, okay? And here we go. There we go. So that also works. And it does bend them. This is grade 10. Grade 8 will destroy the bolt. Get grade 10, that's the key. So now we have everything back together, the hoses, the belt. If you need a guide on how to reinstall the AC belt, because it's a stretch type of belt, I'll include a link in the description box below showing on how you can reinstall that. Regarding the antifreeze, Subaru recommends using this conditioner. This prevents, years ago they had a problem with their head gasket, so this is essentially a conditioner that you add to the cooling system, and it doesn't affect the hoses or anything like that, or the antifreeze. Now once you've added your Subaru coolant, just make sure it's also up to the full line on the reservoir. We'll start the car and let's see how it goes.